done so far and also what's coming down the pike later in the year. So the agenda for today is really simple. We'll just cover quickly about who we are, and then we'll get right into the updates. We'll be covering sub-meter billing and then access control and visitor management. At the end of the webinar, we'll open it up to any questions that, that there may be. So we'll unmute at the end of the call. Throughout the presentation, however, if you have any questions, feel free to pop them into the chat. The only point I'll make is that I want to address them right as you type them in. We'll go back at the end of the webinar and then cover them all. Okay, so for those of you who are not familiar, Genea offers three product solutions right now. That is overtime HVAC, sub-meter billing, and access control. Overtime HVAC is an ability to request and bill back for any overtime air conditioning and lighting in commercial buildings. Sub-meter billing is an ability to capture data from sub-meters, utility sub-meters such as electricity, water, gas, and so on, and then bill back tenants in commercial real estate. And access control is a fairly recent Genea acquisition of a great product company formerly known as Secure that applies to both commercial real estate and enterprise markets. That's kind of how we look at our customers. So commercial real estate is really a customer of all three of our products, and enterprise is much more focused right now on access control and visitor management. Now, when we talk about our customers, few things that we are very, very proud of is our relationship with the customers, our customer retention, our net promoter score. Now, the way that we make sure we keep those numbers high is, of course, by our great customer service, and then the side of the company, the part of the team that is kind of looking forward. How do we engage our customers? How do we create products that are the best they can be for our customers? This is really what we're here to talk about today. How do we build products together with our customers? So far, we've been going through some of the, again, statistics and numbers for Q3, and we wanted to make that connection of how do we tell a story about how customers participate in our products. And a few interesting things came up. So this quarter alone, we captured more than 100 customer insights. So what's a customer insight? That's any email, phone call, live chat, conversation that happens between any Genea team member and any of our customers. So we capture all of them and we track them. We want to build all those things into the new products that we deliver. So what do we do with those things? We plan them out, place them in a priority stack, put them on a roadmap. We've been doing that for a while. So all of those customer insights that were captured previously, we've condensed those into what was released this quarter alone, 25 new features since the beginning of the quarter. Of course, we have a few more in the pipeline for the end of the quarter, but this is just another number that kind of jumps out at us when we've kind of took a pause and looked back at what we've done in the past few weeks. Now, the way that we release new features is by planned releases. And again, when we look back in the past 6 weeks, we've had 8 major releases across different product lines. So that means that we're constantly pushing new things out. So as we connect the customer insights to new features that we are planning or existing ones that we are improving, what we want to make sure that we have is this pace and cadence of delivering new things that we know our customers need, both current customers and some of the prospects that we are currently talking to. So to get into more specifics, what we'll do right now is go into 2 major areas, sub-meter billing, and then a little bit after that, access control and visitor management. So let's start with sub-meter billing and let's look at what is new this quarter. Some of the big improvements in sub-meter billing are on the meter reading mobile app. We've gathered a lot of customer feedback, some of it great, some of it challenges that we've had with the mobile app in the past, and our team has worked effortlessly to address those. So those challenges range from usability to things such as reliability and performance. We wanted to address all of them, and we have more improvements coming. To call out a few, one of the big improvements is what we call visual meter read entry. When I read a meter, depending on the types of meters that are out there in the field, I may have meters that are kind of measuring multiple things at the same time. And what happens is they have these little tickers that change values every 5 or 10 seconds, kind of like a stock market ticker that just kind of flashes across the screen. So when I need to read 6 or 7 digits and plug them in as my read, I may forget what I just saw on the screen, especially if I'm reading 100 or 200 meters a day. If I have 2-3 million square feet building with a lot of tenants, that can be a challenge. So one of the feedbacks which we thought was great from our customers was, well, since you're capturing the image already, why don't you just show it to me as I'm entering the read, so I can look at it and make sure that I'm confirming the values that I see on the screen. So that is now a new feature that you can expand and zoom in and find a number to make sure that the read that you're entering is correct. Another challenge that we saw is when meter readers are reading wrong meters, which happens again in a scenario with 100 or 200 meters in a building. It's easy to read the wrong meter. So what we do is we enable a feature that if you're scanning an asset tag, a QR code, after you already selected a meter that needs to be read, and those two things don't match up, we prompt a simple warning that tells you, hey, are you sure you're reading the correct meter? Check your numbers again. That way, we reduce the chance of having to go back, because we usually catch those errors in the audit process. It reduces the chances of us having to go back to the meter readers and the property team and say, hey, can you please go read that meter again because there's a wrong value. This is now alerted right away. One of the big kind of challenges that we saw over the past few weeks was when meter reads are not uploaded to platform. And that can happen for a variety of reasons, but the main one is something that's imposed on all apps on mobile phones, both iOS and Android, which is that apps go to sleep, they go to background. That can either happen when you swipe your screen up and you go to home screen when you lock your phone, or even simple things when you have a phone incoming, you answer the phone, the app goes into the background. Now, when that happens, operating systems of these devices, they pause any activity. And they do that for a very, very valid reason, which is to save the battery and to not waste your data plan minutes or megabytes if you have one of those plans. Now, what happens next is all of those meter uploads are just paused. They're sitting on device. They're not continuing the upload to the Genea platform. So what we thought about was we have an opportunity that is enabled by, again, both OSs to send a signal to the device and say, check if you have any reads that are stuck on the device, and alert the user that they just need to open up the app, because that's really all it takes. You open up the app and the reads are uploaded and you're done. So as of a week or two ago, what some of you will start seeing is a reminder that, hey, not all the meter reads finished upload. Just tap here to open the app and the reads will upload to the platform. Apart from that, and a number of bug fixes and stability improvements, we are really hoping that this will improve the experience that everybody out there in the field has with our meter reading app. Now, sub-meter billing has seen another set of improvements. So Genea Portal. Some of you may have been transitioned to the new Genea Portal that looks slightly different than our old Genea Classic. And the new things are primarily with the new invoicing dashboard. What we want to do is communicate very clearly which buildings in the portfolio are up to date with utility bills, with any of the manual meter reads that need to be taken, which invoices are ready to be approved. And we are also building in automatic notifications. Another thing that was very important to us is to keep track of where we need utility bills, that either the Genea team can connect that to the utility provider portal and we can upload those bills ourselves, or that the property team can simply upload the bills and we can skip on the email back and forth and exchange, where a lot of the things get lost. They get lost in the noise. So from now on in the new Genea portal, all of those bills will be tracked against a particular billing period. So when I go back to my archive and I look at my invoices from February, I will not only be able to find my tenant invoices, but also I'll be able to see my utility bill invoices so that I can correlate the two. One other big improvement is the automatic integration into some of the accounting systems, which becomes workflow driven in such a way that when I, as a property manager, look at my tenant invoices that was prepared and audited by Genea, and I hit approve, that I automatically trigger a process to feed that into Angus or any of the other systems that you have in your tech stack. One other big improvement in the Genea portal, which is coming by the end of this quarter, is opening up this view to your tenants in your building, where you can enable tenant login. And now for the first time in the new portal, your tenants will be able to have that invoice archive available in the Genea platform in much the same way that they can access overtime HVAC and submit their requests and see their schedules. Now they'll also be able to see only their portion of the bill that they're expected to remit to the building payment center. Again, whether the tenants span multiple floors or they have multiple meters or just 1 meter, all of that is going to live in the tenant portal. One last thing that I have here on the list is we call energy analytics. So through a partnership, we've enabled a different and much more expanded and advanced view on the metering and energy data that we collect. So what we can enable, and this is on a per role basis, is access to customizable charts and widgets where you can look at all your data, not just the one that you bill back to the tenants, but all the data that we collect from various meters. Again, think water, electricity, gas, whatever you may have in on your site. And we have a way to chart that for the purposes of gaining insights into how we are using our energy. Another big advantage is that we can now provide greenhouse gas reports, which ultimately ends up working as a kind of a complex formula. How do you go from kilowatt hours or from cubic feet of gas into what my footprint is in terms of greenhouse gases? So all that now lives as a simple widget on a standard report that you can access on demand any time of day. And of course, we track this over time. So what I may be curious about is how am I tracking this year versus the same period of last year? One big important part about bringing energy analytics on top of our sub-metering data is ability to be a little more predictive about it. So what we do is we look at what's called degree day normalization. So our equipment is going to run differently in a building, whether it is a hot day or a cold day. We can track how much energy we use per degree difference at a given day from what is expected temperature or average temperature. That also gives us a way to predict in the future how much energy we will be using. So really what I'm getting here in a roundabout way is that this gives us a way to start predicting energy budgets, because we can correlate the weather data to our consumption trends. And that really gives us a good insight into how we're using and how we will be using the energy. Apart from that, of course, what you gain now is a very detailed insight into where and how energy is being used. What that means is that time of day, day of the week, and which particular meters or think floors or areas of any given site or a building. Now, we've always had that data stored, but when you see that visualized in a graph, in a chart, in a heat map, that really draws the attention to sustainability engineers and building engineers to where there is a possibility, a potential for saving the energy and therefore saving some of the money, because there is a potential that we are not using the energy in the best optimal way that we could. So this is an incredibly powerful set of tools that now comes through sub-meter billing energy analytics. Now, all of those dashboards that you currently see on the screen, those are a standard set of reports that becomes available to any energy analytics user. There is also a capability of having private user dashboards. So those are some of the things that any advanced user of the system may create for themselves. So if you are trying to think about how do I better track my energy between, let's say, the parking deck and my main building, but I don't want to throw that on the main dashboard that my other team members can see because it may be confusing. It's only a half-baked idea. I can have that widget on my own private dashboard that I can then publish later when I'm ready for the rest of the team to see it. So I'm super excited to present the energy analytics integration for advanced sub-meter billing users. So that is a quick overview of the sub-meter billing improvements so far in the Q3, some of the hints as to what's coming later down the line towards the end of the quarter. And let's quickly get into access control and visitor management. So this quarter has been, again, incredibly active for our access control and visitor management team. And here we'll cover only a subset, but the highlights of what we've released this quarter so far. One of the biggest releases for our customers on the Mercury hardware is the global dashboards. So going from having the data at your fingertips from site to site basis, meaning I have to switch my site from Tokyo to New York to LA to get the same kind of data, I would normally pull it into a spreadsheet and then do my analytics. We now actually do that at a global level. So I can see all my statistics the same way that I was able to see them before, but I can now see them in one consolidated global dashboard where I can filter, I can change my time frame, and then I can export that data from a single place as opposed to having to go to dozens or maybe even hundreds of locations. That works for both activity statistics as well as hardware view. So now, instead of having to kind of hop from one site to another site to see my hardware status and to follow up on any of the alerts that I may have received in an email, I can actually see them in a global dashboard and have a quick view into which hardware is functioning as it's expected versus the hardware that has issues. One of the new things that we brought in with global dashboards as it relates to hardware, sort of in particular, is once we receive an alert about a piece of equipment malfunctioning, or maybe it's even access-related alerts such as access denied or tailgating, we also now provide a way to acknowledge those alarms. And GSOC teams will appreciate that. It's almost a condensed mini widgeted feature that allows you to quickly look at an alarm. If you have a video management system integration, you can actually see the event on a video clip, and you can make a decision right then and there and acknowledge to make sure that the rest of your team has the information that you've looked at an event and that you've dispositioned it. So it either goes into your incident management system from there on, or you just say, hey, Jimmy down in LA was testing the new reader and a door. That's why we received an alarm. I'm just going to acknowledge it and close it out. Apart from viewing the data and alerts and alert acknowledgement, we also elevated the remote door controls to a global level. So again, as opposed to having to hop from one site to another to quickly issue grants and door unlocks or completely lock or unlock doors, you can now do that from, from one main global dashboard, where you can either have a list of your what we call favorite doors, which just means the most commonly used doors for your particular user ID, or you have a whole list of doors that you can still filter based on location. You can still search based on a name, but it gives you a quick access to do remote door control from one single place. We've done the same thing with the user management. None of the functionality is taken away from site-by-site basis when it comes to managing users, doors, hardware, and so on. But now it's much more accessible and much more convenient to do it from a single place. To support all this, we've also developed a kind of another layer on top of our APIs and our webhooks, where now not only can you do those things through the UI when you log in, but for all of our techie customers who are leveraging our APIs and webhooks, you can now actually make use of that for your downstream systems that you may have integrated with Genea. So besides global dashboard, another big release was credential templates and badge printing. And when we talk about badges here, we're talking the actual the little white plastic cards that you tap to card readers that open doors. So far, we haven't really had a way to allow our customers to embed their branding onto those cards. And we know that, especially in enterprises, that's an important element of both the company culture, but also security, because different badges can mean different things. A green badge may mean I'm an intern and I am only allowed on certain floors of my office building. Or if I have a red badge, that means I'm a security professional and I have access everywhere. It's a quick way to visually identify people as you move through space. Now, when we thought about what is the best way to deliver this kind of a branding experience, what emerged quickly as the perfect solution is, well, let's just give our administrators a way to design a badge as they would design a blog post or a simple web page with a what you see is what you get badge designer. So either starting from a predefined template that we have a few pre-populated, or starting from scratch, from a completely blank canvas, adding your images, your branding, text, various different shapes that allow you to layer on top of each other and create that experience, create that badge. You can start creating the badge templates. They can be double-sided. They can be, of course, single-sided. You can add items such as both the image of the person that is being issued the badge or just the regular logo image. We really went down to the level of the pixels where you can control what does that badge look like. Now, when it comes to kind of connecting the badge to the template of a access credential, we thought about that. How do we best kind of, again, marry the branding and something that is universal across the entire enterprise to some of the more nuanced specifics about how different groups of people within the enterprise use those badges. So a concrete example is, if I am an intern, I may have a badge that looks just the same as a regular employee, but because I am an intern, I have certain different settings set to my badge. Maybe I'm only an intern between June and September of a given year, and my badge will be deactivated automatically come September 23rd, for example. Now, previously, that was a fairly manual process. There would need to be either a office manager or intern coordinator who would go and turn off access to the interns, or if it's being fed through Okta or AD, it would generally be an IT administrator who would turn off the access. Now, with the new templates, you can actually predetermine the expiration date for only that particular group of interns. Let's call them 2021 interns, and you can say, I'm going to provision these particular credentials to a group of users, and they're going to be active from June 2nd to September 23rd. All of the rest of the process is completely automated. Whenever we add a new user or employee into that group, they will automatically follow the template of all of the provisions and restrictions of that credential template. Another great example is what the industry calls user lose, or we call it dynamic credential expiration. And the short story there is that if I lose my card, it is not, if it's sitting somewhere by the side of the road in a ditch, it's unlikely to be used for a given period of time. Let's say if it's not used in 60 days or more, we will automatically suspend that card. Now, again, given different types of users, that period you may want to set to a different value. If I am a regional sales manager and I travel a lot, I'm unlikely to be using that badge on a given location very often. But if I'm an IT security professional or a GSOC operator, I'm more likely to be there every single day. So I'm going to constrict that time frame, and I'll say, if this card is not used in 7 days, automatically suspend it and alert me next time it's being used so that I can follow up appropriately. So all of that falls within what we call credential templates. Quickly to talk about printing those cards, because ultimately that's what we want to do once we design the cards. What we've been doing is testing with a particular line of printers, which is HID Fargo. Now, what we also wanted to do is not constrain this to only one type of, or currently 4 types of printers. We enable those as preset sizes. What it really comes down to is the type of card and format that the printer can take in. So those are presets in what you'll see in the designer as a width and height of each card. But what we also wanted to make sure is that if there are any other printers out there that are network printers that you can print through a regular driver that you may have on that particular device, let's say a Windows driver, that we shouldn't prevent our users from being able to print to just about any other printer. All that you would need to take care of with a custom printer or custom size printer is what are the dimensions of that card, so that the content can be formatted correctly, so that your margins are correct when you ultimately print that card out. So again, even though this has been tested on HAD Fargo line, there is really no reason why it wouldn't work on any other printer that is connected through the network to a device from which you are creating and printing these cards. So that's one of the big updates with our batch designer and printing. Those were not the only updates in access control. There's a whole host of others, and I just listed out here a few of the highlights again. One is customizable email templates, and this has to do with any automated email that comes out of our system. So think about if you're inviting a new person to help you administer your organization, or if you are issuing somebody a new mobile key. There's again a similar theme where you want to make sure that you deliver your company culture, your branding, so that when I receive that email as an employee, I actually have this embedded experience that I'm receiving this from my organization and not just some tool that my organization uses, so that you can create a custom set of instructions, set appropriate expectations, and spell out any waivers and disclaimers if you need to, as far as what the expectations are and the proper way of using those cards. For example, if you're talking about the card email that you're customizing. So the change really, unless you decide to change your email templates, they stay as they are today. But for any administrator out there who wants to start changing the branding, the messaging, you now have the ability to simply say, I'm going to use my own template, and we give you a full HTML builder where, again, you can go down to the level of the pixel detail and decide what that experience can be by uploading your images, by changing the wording, overall styling, and you can actually test and see what the result of those emails will be before you start sending it out to your users. Some of the other items that we had was something that's called strike follower. What that means is that any actions that happen after a door is locked or unlocked. Some examples are when the door is unlocked, I need to turn on a big green light that's sitting right above it. Or when the door is locked, I need to switch the light to red. All of those things can be programmed on access controllers. Now, what we have done only last week is we provided a user interface to be able to do that straight from the cloud platform. So you can now actually define what those actions are by programming directly into the sequences of how hardware works and what actions follow the previous actions. Paired readers is another kind of a hardware adjacent feature where you can now have readers that are working on the same door, but one reader may be the entry reader, the other one may be the exit reader. Now we can actually pair those two, so they are kind of a supplementary to one another, and they are where they're operating on the same door. Again, something that is a very core feature of any access control system. We are now bringing this into the UI of the cloud system. Similar with the door access control mode, we're getting to the very fine level of detail and starting to pull out all of those things that generally are programmed right onto the board. We are now exposing that so that any advanced user can do that from the cloud platform. Apart from that, we've gotten a lot of feedback on the safe workplace, and the majority of the work that we have done is actually in the user interface, where we've looked at the usage patterns and we've realized that there are ways to better present registration process to the users, especially for those organizations with multiple locations that decide to enable a longer time period to check in for our safe workplace. And for those on the call who are not familiar, safe workplace is our way to enable any administrator to create such a workflow in your organization such that all the credentials would get temporarily suspended at the end of every day, and only those employees who check in online, who answer the questionnaire, can then come into the physical location and their credentials are enabled. So the new process, for some of you may have already noticed, is that I will now be taken through a wizard style of approach to safe workplace, as opposed to having a full screen of locations and timeframes that I need to choose on my screen. So those are just some of the kind of additional updates in access control, in addition to badge printing and global dashboard. I also want to talk about visitor management. So we've had some improvements in visitor management as well. Some of the main highlights are that we now support multiple visitor types and check-in flows. So that means that I can start segmenting the people who are visiting my building or my office, and I can say, I want to ask different questions of different types of visitors. So for example, if I am a package delivery person, I really don't need to know what company do you work for or have you been here before. I may just need to record a tracking number on a package. Or if I'm coming in for a job interview, the visitor check-in process and the information that I collect may be vastly different from a vendor or a VIP person who may also have different needs than any other visitor. Where this works really the best is because of our integration between visitor management and access control. What I can decide to do again is have different visitor types. Let's say job interviewees. I will ask them a separate set of questions. I'll require their photos and sign the NDAs and anything else they need to do in the check-in process. And I will enable access to a QR code that they receive to a particular area of the office or of the building. Let's say a visitor lounge where their host will come and collect them and they will go off to conduct an interview. Now with our VIP guests, which is completely customizable, I can add as many of these visitor types as I want. I can define a process such that I don't ask for their photos because that may be sensitive information. If they are an investor or an executive, they're visiting my CEO. I can not have to require them to sign the same document that the interviewee had to sign. And on top of that, because of the integration with access control, I can actually, through that QR code, grant them access to the C-suite, which is only available to those select visitor types. This works for both the pre-registered visitors, those that are invited, as well as the walk-in visitors. So what I can do is I can decide which types of visitors are available for walk-ins. And what that means is that there'll be available menu choices on the iPad or when I scan my QR code with my own device. So I can select that I'm either a food and package delivery person or I'm here for an interview. But of course, me as a security professional, I probably want to not show that VIP visitor type, which is only going to be available for the invited visitors. So these new multiple visitor types and check-in flows really allow you to be much more kind of a detailed in how do you segment your visitors and what do you allow for each group versus another, and all of the questions that you ask. So now that we have multiple visitor types, what we also wanted to do is deliver an ability to assign physical credentials to visitors. We realize that QR codes work great, but only in those places where you actually have a QR code reader that can interpret that code and send a signal to access control management hardware. In a lot of cases, when we look at our customer portfolio, there are still processes in place where a visitor comes, registers, and they're given a temporary little white, usually HID card that they carry with them for the duration of their stay in the space, and then they hand it back when they leave. Now, those are generally not very well tracked. They're tracked we've seen spreadsheets or in notes in visitor management systems. This actually now, the ability to provision physical credentials to visitors gives us a way to integrate that into access control so that when the security staff is looking through the logs and activities, they can see which visitor attempted to access which particular doors, where they were given access or where they were denied access. And again, because of the integrations with video management systems, we can pull out the actual event video and we can say, is that the visitor on the screen that matches the visitor profile, because we've asked them to take the photo as they were walking in. So it completes this experience where at the end of the day, what you want to make sure, be that a visitor or employee or vendor, the person who is using a credential that is issued to them is the same person that you see on the screen, that you see on the logs. So this makes that kind of a control much more both available, but also much convenient to use. In the visitor process, the only thing that you would do is you would assign a card number. So you would put in a note, card number, you would have a predetermined type, and you would save that with the visitor. When they check out, that card gets released and it's ready to be assigned to the next visitor. In addition to those couple of features, we'll also open the visitor management API, which was something that we had for access control and visitor management. We were kind of handling with various both customers and partners. Now it's a fully open API that just about anybody in the world can look at and test and consume. And the way it works, it allows you to interact with those QR codes that you issue to various different visitors. We're also bringing in the other side of the API in the other direction, where you can request the access logs and pull the data from visitor management into any of your data analytics software. One last thing that we have is a self-checkout. So this currently works on the visitors on mobile devices. We've realized that invite that we send out to visitors, that's really something that needs to kind of have its own life cycle. So I can accept my invite. I can check in if I'm doing the pre-visitor registration, where I can fill in my picture, my answers, sign documents. I am marked as arrived visitor when I scan my QR code or when a concierge marks me as arrived. But then also I can check myself out. So when I'm done with my visit, I can just finish my visit, and I'm no longer on the dashboard in the visitor management system. My visit has concluded. That also integrates into the returns of the physical credentials, so that we have a full workflow and the kind of the full life cycle of any visitor who is at a given building or at any given space. So those are the highlights of the visitor management. And again, as I mentioned, the quarter is not over yet. We are halfway there, and there are still many things that we are working towards, either by the end of this quarter or starting the next quarter. And I know we're close to our time. We're at a 42-minute mark, so I'll just quickly cover some of the highlights between both access control and visitor management. One of the big important things that we're working on that actually relates to both is something that we call custom roles. And for all the current Genea customers, access control customers, you're familiar with a few different what we call administrator and sub-administrator roles and the different actions that they can do. Now, those roles are currently preset. So if you assign a front desk role, that role can do specific things, specific functionality within the system. For example, they can remotely lock and unlock doors, but they cannot add new users. Then conversely, you have maybe a security role that can create or remove users, but they cannot manage hardware. Now, what we've realized, again, given the big mix of customers and the needs, we definitely want to retain the preset roles, but we also want to expand a custom role builder and build a kind of a granular matrix of all the different possibilities in the platform of what somebody could do, and then start assigning custom company-specific role that you can now assign and say, my role, which I'm going to call security 2B, will have features X, Y, and Z. I can get to the very granular level of what that particular role can do. And it has to do both with the sort of the reading and writing of the data, or if you will, pulling out activity logs or changing the settings in the platform. It will be down to the global administrators who decide which users have permissions to do what across both access control and visitor management. Another big feature that we have coming later, this before the end of the year, is automated reporting. What our system is very good at is having the ability to view activity, to view alarms, have that list that you can filter both by types of events and by timeline. Now, often what we find is that people need a kind of a repeatable report. So if I'm looking at my activity report of every denied card, I probably want to do that every Monday at 9 a.m. And I want to save my filters in such a way that I don't have to repeat those 4 or 5 steps every time I pull up a report. So what we will be delivering is a way to save those views that I can access on demand at any time. So I go to my activity page, and then I have my current activity that shows me everything, but then I have a shortcut to a filtered view that gives me exactly what I need, which I may call denied events during the weekend. In addition to that, we'll also enable automated report delivery. So not only will I have that ability to see on demand from the web dashboard, I've also may decide that I want that in my email inbox at 6 a.m. every Monday morning, or I may send that to another few of my team members, or even a distribution list, so that that report becomes available and I can expect it reliably every Monday morning in my case. So that's something that we are currently working towards. And again, we'll have that out before the end of the year. On the visitor management side, one of the big things that we want to deliver is a way for finishing really the visitor process in a way that you want to have a checkout part of the visitor flow. In the same way that you collect information with a check-in, there's also a checkout part that is sort of more optional, but also provides you valuable data. So particular use cases are when I have an event where I invite a number of visitors. Of course, I want to collect their information when they're coming in, as far as what their name, company, position is, any custom questions I may want to ask. But also when they leave, I may be able to survey them and say, how was your experience? Please select from the drop down of options of what you like the most versus what you like the least. Again, those are all questions that are not limited in number. Any administrator will be able to define a custom checkout flow per type of a visitor. What it also means, going back to our multiple visitor types, I may have a different checkout flow based on the visitor type. So again, if we're talking about a package delivery, in this case, packages really are visitors. So on the inbound, when the package comes in, I'll record my tracking number. On the outbound, I'll collect maybe a signature from the employee who is taking over the package and carrying it upstairs to their office. And then another big improvement that we're looking to deliver is the multilingual support. And this is something that is going to be available to all the administrators. When you create those check-in and check-out flows, we know that in a lot of cases, English and only English is not enough, and you need to have that available in multiple languages. And you also need to be able to offer that visitor to answer those questionnaires in the language that they feel most comfortable in. So towards the end of the year, we are looking to deliver multilingual support to the visitor management system, where any administrator can enter different sort of a language sets as they relate to the check-in questionnaires and flows. So given that we have about 15 minutes left, I'll stop it here, and I'll open it up to any questions. And Kim, you can help me unmute the audience if there are any questions. And while we do that, you can always pop any questions in the chat, and I'll go through them one by one. One other thing that I will point out is our product process will continue engaging our customers as much as possible. You can call us, you can email the product team directly with the email that you see on the screen. You can always live chat us. There is no such thing as too much information or too many insights. We are really doing everything we can to hear every single use case scenario out there, so that we can build that insight into the new features that we are releasing, either in a short term or things that we are thinking about in the long run. So for all the existing customers, please always feel free to give us any kind of feedback, good or bad, as well as for the those people who are considering the Genea offerings. If there is a particular use case scenario that you're not sure about how would be addressed with the Genea system, let us know, and we'll make sure that we capture that and also to answer the questions. What date will so we have a question about what date will the visitor management API be available? So that is available today, and what you can do, if you email us at the email below, we'll send you the link where you can find that, and we'll also send you the documentation. Okay. Still have a few minutes, so I'll leave it open for another few questions, another minute, and then if we are all good, we will get a few minutes back in our life. Okay. I think that is all that we're going to get today. Again, don't be shy. Reach out to us if you have any other questions that come up after we end this call, and myself and the team will be more than happy to answer anything. So thank you to all of those who participated, and I hope you have the great rest of your day.